Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Capital Planning and Budget Committee to order. If the secretary would take attendance, please.
Mrs. Labuda.
Here.
Mr. Sorensen.
Here.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Mr. Steingart.
Here.
Mr. Ruiz.
Okay,
Mr. Potosik.
Here.
Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen. Nancy's here for Ira.
hi, Nance.
Not used to that.
You're on the roll call sheet. You're on the roll call sheet.
Okay, we're getting closer and closer to our budget. Of course, the capital and long-term planning, it will be part of the county's budget, so we needed to have this meeting today. Dun. So Alex is here. Alex, just a couple words. Did you want to just mention anything? I know Cora asked that we would, if you could just say a couple things about the upgrade on the public safety radios, we'd appreciate it.
Can I just, before he starts, just thank him for going up to Elk Point on a day like today to make sure that the towers are
You made it back in time?
oriented the way they're supposed to.
It's your job, who's doing it?
Who's still up there?
Crystal Menagerie.
So Cora had asked that I kind of give a few words on, just an update on the capital project for the radio system.
Ira, slide
We,
that disc over that way.
Want me to sit up there?
Thank you. Yeah, would you mind? Yeah, sit right
Yeah,
up
come to
there,
the big
Alex.
boys
You
table,
better.
come on. Thanksgiving's over, you can sit with the big folks.
So there's a spreadsheet there in front of Cora, just to kind of give an update on the projected budget. The budget figures for the capital project for the radio upgrade has not changed. We're still utilizing all
I was
the
giving you that one.
all of the original figures.
There's more coming.
Preparing the budget, though, I believe Josh used the,
We need some here.
I'll just wait for these to get passed out, just so we're all on the same page.
Thank you. I got one for you.
You have one extra for Dan? Anybody extras? You need it? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Alex, I'm sorry.
So the top half of the spreadsheet is kind of what was
Ruiz
proposed last year as part of the capital budget submission. It was a phased approach over 3 years to divide up the total figure of $9.1 million. This committee last year opted to not borrow any money in 2013, which, if you see at the bottom half of the spreadsheet, is kind of how the update to the capital budget would fall. So taking the 23 funds, the $3,261,000 would shift into 2014, requiring a capital expense in 2014 of $8,071. And that's for building out basically all of the tower sites, along with the Motorola expenses. Motorola, you see in the center there, the Motorola milestones. Part of the Motorola contract, there are milestone payments that are due as we start the contract design review, as equipment is shipped, as equipment is installed, and then once we test it and accept it, there are certain payments due to Motorola to fulfill our contract. So in order to stay on pace with that contract, with those contract milestones, we're going to have a pretty aggressive 2014 to basically complete the project, and probably really be completed early 2015 when we do the final acceptance and testing. But this is kind of how the capital budget will hopefully shape up so we can get this project completed by early 2015.
We've been talking about this since when, Alex?
2009, 2010 is when we really started getting some traction.
But we're doing it.
Cora?
Nancy, so when we have the old debt roll off, you'll give us a schedule of how that happens? Because that was one of the criteria that we weren't going to be taking any new debt on until old debt rolled off.
Right, I can look it up and email it to everyone tomorrow.
We don't need it tomorrow.
In general
Josh.
terms,
I think Josh has it.
I don't have exact figures in front of me, but in general terms, if you bond money next year in 14, that the first payment would be in 15, obviously. So there's about $700,000 less in debt service payments that you'd have to make in 15 than in 14. So that would be what you'd have available to pay new debt that you would take on in 14.
Okay.
Excellent.
Did we get any Homeland Security money in this last grant round?
round 4 in the spring is the next round. Round 3, if you got money in round 1 and round 2, you're not eligible.
Okay,
Oh.
I
Okay,
couldn't
we've been
remember
through
that.
that 100 times.
All right,
Okay.
Also, did we have an opportunity to see about the possibility with Motorola with the software, breaking it up for the broadband, from that presentation that Kitty was?
So that's not included in the Motorola. Motorola is not doing our microwave. The microwave system, although it is in the 2014 budget here, the microwave is gonna be done by a company called Alcatel.
Mhm.
They are basically the leaders in microwave. And they are on state contract pricing. So our intent would be to continue, as we were gonna do all along, continue working with Alcatel. From all the presentations we've had, they've indicated it's about an 8 to 10% delta to put in that MPLS piece, which they say will then allow you to segment that pipe and give priority. So as we kind of move down the path, we would like to continue to keep focus on the broadband project. And I'm thinking, I mean, for now, until we see what the final prices are gonna be for the microwave, you know, we may very well have an opportunity to absorb it in some of the costs in this radio project. So adding the components necessary to build the infrastructure for broadband, I'm hoping that we can absorb it with some of the other costs in the project.
Which I think is fantastic. Thank you.
And from a boots on the ground perspective, I mean, right now we have round 1 grant money and round 2 grant money. Bids have gone out for the shelters, for the towers, and for the site development for the Tanana Lake Tower, the Thunder Hill Tower. And probably after the new year, we'll start to put bids out for the Wurtsboro Tower as well, so.
make sure you take care of the Wurtsboro Tower, would you, Alex?
Yes, ma'am. And,
Now, is it in the
But
village?
it's after the other 2 towers. After the other 2 towers.
Right. And one's going by you, right, Kitty?
Yeah.
Actually, Alex, I was just.
Wurtsboro is cleared. DPW did a great job up there. They've cleared the lot. They put the fence around so the rattlesnakes don't get in there. They've done some.
I was just out in the town of Barryville at a luncheon, and one of the seniors said that, and in the carriage house, you do not have cell service. Did you know that? I mean, it's just thinking 2013, but a couple of the guys said, when are we gonna have cell service out here? I said, we're working on it. But, was that a lie?
Actually, you know, the river sites, I mean, we have 2
Because-
proposed, the Calhoun, right above the Delaware Valley Job
Right.
Corps, then we have one down in Tustin. And, you know, by all means, if cell providers.
And hopefully
come,
that
we
will-
welcome the discussion.
Okay.
But to keep you clear on this, cell and broadband are 2 different things. You know, getting broadband in doesn't necessarily assume you got cell service.
And vice versa.
Right, yeah.
So
I don't
can
have
you
either one
just
by my house, so.
clarify the co-location or the tower shares with Orange County? Just how
So-
that's working out.
Back in 2009, when we were looking at the initial design of the system, Blue Wing had indicated that we're gonna need a tower somewhere in the Lumberland area. And we had a proposed site in Lumberland, and we still have a proposed site in the town of Lumberland on Decker Road. In the meantime, Orange County, just like us, they've been working on upgrading their communication system as well. And they're proposing a tower site in Sparrow Bush, right on the Sullivan County, Orange County line. And,
Good.
so we're looking, so we're looking at the opportunity, as long as we have comparable coverage and it's not gonna degrade our system at all, we're looking at the opportunity to co-locate with Orange County on
Right.
a tower in Sparrow Bush. It would save the expense and help offset some of the cost for broadband of us having to build a tower in Lumberland. At the same time, Orange County has approached us and they'd like to sign an MOU to co-locate on our Wurtsboro tower and shoot back into Orange County. So, you know, we
Okay.
essentially have a
It's a
even
wash.
trade-off
Yeah,
to.
it's a wash.
But if we do
Which is
that,
fine.
I just wanna be clear, that county would own and our county would own, because when I was speaking to Dick earlier, if somebody else owns the tower, the increase in rent can after a short time go like.
Well, Orange County is going to own the tower in Sparrow Bush, and we own the tower in Wurtsboro. So if this comes to fruition and we're able to, again, guarantee the coverage to Lumberland, that we need the 95% local coverage, for public safety communications, then, you know, they would build the building, they would build the tower, and we would put our antennas up on their tower. Same would happen in Wurtsboro, we would build the tower, we would own the building, and they would put some equipment in our shelter. So it'd be kind of an even wash, we wouldn't have to buy another building, another tower, another generator.
And it's also for public safety, both of those
Both are
towers.
for public safety. Correct.
So
Okay.
neither one should charge the other
No,
for it.
and that's what the MOU would be for, it would be a wash, basically.
Okay, any other questions for Alex, because we have a long presentation from Ed. Okay, Alex, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cora, too, for all the work you've done with. That's good stuff. Ed,
Hello.
good afternoon. And what's your bottom number? Never mind.
I have an intermediate number.
Okay.
I was gonna just pass around a couple pictures. There's 3 sets of the same here.
You don't think we can read?
No, this is just a little visual.
I like pictures.
A little more visual.
It's
if
one
you
whole
can
packet,
pass
I
them
think, Jean,
around a
isn't it?
little
Yeah.
bit. A couple of our
I'm gonna keep
bridges
it.
right
Yeah, I
now
need
that
the
are
notes.
in fairly poor condition, and those are actually county roads on the pictures there, showing what we've described when we don't keep up a paving program, where I said the cost will start to go from $1 to $4 to fix, is what starts to happen at that point. That's showing, recently we had to do this on 2 roads at the end of this season, where we have to go in, you can't pave anymore. So you have to take that all out, mill down at least 8 inches, and bring back up with a porous pavement base, and then another lift on top of that, and then we're still going to have to pave over top of that. So on average, we're spending, paving per mile is about $220,000. When we have to go do this now, which is what we are in the process of doing, that's costing us $660,000 a mile, or 3 times the cost. And it happens very rapidly. Once the roads start to deteriorate, they go very bad. Just to give you some idea, right now, we're still completing our RSMS program this year, but we have about, it looks like 35, 40 miles in need of this kind of repair right now out of our road system. We have another 170 miles that need paving. Total together, alone on that, on the full depth replacement repairs, we'll call them, we're looking at $26,400,000 worth of work in that. On our just 3-inch overlay right now, we're looking at $37,400,000 for a total of about $64 million right now required in paving. When our roads are in good shape, we should spend anywhere maybe $7 or $8 million a year right now in paving. So we're about the equivalent of 8 years behind at this point in what's going. The longer it takes, and coming up and trying to get those 170 miles, we're obviously not gonna be able to do that, and we're gonna slip further into
Well, the longer it goes, the
the
further
longer,
behind we get.
the further, the more of them are gonna slip into the 660,000 type cost per mile. So we're juggling around in there. I honestly don't have a solid number on the bridges right now, but that's also not a pretty number at this point, just because of the different sizes of the bridges and the lengths and everything else are the ones we gotta work on. But if you look at the bridge pictures that I took there, that bridge is actually only probably 20 years old. However, at the time, there was a steel called Corten steel, which was supposed to
Last forever.
rust slightly over the surface and not require painting then. It was supposed to. Problem was, it didn't stop rusting. They found a lot of problems with it, so it rusted right through the beams on the bottom. That's why you'll see that we have 2x10s actually bolted to the beams to provide support at this point. Had to make it one lane and down post it. It happens to be in town of Rockland. Drive around up there at all. The other bridges in town of Liberty and Parksville. Yeah, that's another one that's, and I mean, I could have brought, 15,
It's
20
too
more
depressing,
bridges that
nobody
look
does
like that.
everybody.
I just wanted to give you a little flavor for the type of, why we're sitting here asking for money. These are not actually wish lists that we have here. This is, this is actual, some serious problems out there.
So
with
could you
infrastructure.
clarify for me, Ed, when we talked about the 80 million, what was included in that? This was a previous, you know, that was
Yeah,
a
the
figure in my
paving,
head.
the paving right now, say 65, and in bridges, you add that in, and we still have buildings to add to that, so we may be above that 80 right now. 64 is just, straight up just paving roads right now.
Okay, so the 80 was all in at the time that that number was?
Yep.
That was like around a year ago this time?
Yeah, it's probably going up some.
Okay, so we don't really know what the total amount is?
No, but it's beyond that, yeah.
Okay, so do we have to go through the capital budget to kind of get where those totals are? Because I just need
Then
to get a sense.
they won't be in there. This is this year's, that's it, for 1 year. We're not coming anywhere near that 80 million with our capital.
So is it possible for us to have the road and bridge, numbers, bridge
Mhm.
numbers, and then everything else, the building numbers? Because then we have to start taking bite-sized chunks out of every one of those categories.
Well, I
Leave
think
out
what-
the cars and the salt and
No.
everything else that
No.
comes
Yeah, we
into it.
Well,
cannot
that's
leave that out
operations,
either.
isn't
Well, hey,
No, the vehicles are another big chunk
What
that
I
we're
think
looking
Ed
at
is-
right now.
You mean in terms of capital expenditures?
Yeah, our heavy-duty trucks, our medium-duty trucks, our light-duty trucks, our pickups, and our carpool vehicles are all also something to consider as we
Mhm.
go on.
What I think Ed is gonna do today is everything he's gonna talk about for the capital budget that we're gonna bond in 2014 is long-term equipment stuff that you needed that was been pushed down year after year, correct, Ed?
Yeah,
Obviously,
I'll
we don't
run
have
through our
60 million or
capital
30
plan.
million to give him, but he is gonna talk about what he needs for us to bond in 2014 because of the delays in some of the things we've been delaying. For example, not to bring it up, but the showers in the nursing home. We knew a couple years ago there was some issues and we didn't have the money, so we said, well, let's wait till next year. Next year now wound up costing us double what it should have. There's issues with this building, right, Ed? I mean, it's a flood we had, so I asked Ed to put a list together, things that he absolutely must have, what we need in order to maintain our buildings and we're not having these disasters where it's gonna cost us 2 or 3 times more. So that's the list he's put together for now. So if you could go through that and we can ask him questions as he goes along, and that'll be how we wanna, okay, proceed
Yeah.
forward? So
We'll run
Ed,
through what we
run
have
through
in
what
our
you have.
capital plan as
And do you have
as
a
of this
copy
year.
or just,
I left my budget at
do you have your,
home.
no,
I could borrow
We could
Heather's.
share.
everybody had, everybody was handed a capital budget a couple weeks ago, didn't you, right? You had
It's
that?
part of the budget.
Okay,
It's in the
well,
budget. It's
okay.
in our capital.
Can I
our
make
capital
copies
part.
of something that
Okay,
you're
yeah,
reading
but
from?
let's start.
Well, I'm reading right out of this, I just
We'll
made
give you the
it
page
as
numbers.
I go.
Okay, first
I can go
page.
through.
Okay.
It starts with the building infrastructure.
Page on that, or is that what you requested?
No, I don't have the, I
No
honestly
page?
don't have page
Is that what you
numbers, but
requested, or is that?
it's what you got, what we got from you.
No.
Our requests are underneath it, so.
What page are you on?
It starts with the buildings
Hold on,
infrastructure.
I got mine on my desk.
I have pages on mine. It's the adult care center, if you look at the top.
Adult Care Center.
Look at the top, it'll be adult care center.
Yeah.
What
building
number you have, Alan?
infrastructures.
One right now.
And then the next page, we start with the ACC, then we go into Department of Public Works.
Starts on
Yeah,
page
equipment or-
741.
741?
Buildings. Buildings infrastructure.
Out here, 751.
751.
Okay, that's 751. And under this one, this page is easy. We got the call station replacements. The bids are out on that right now. So we're proceeding with trying to get that done. That's 35,000 in there. That's at the adult care center. The cleaning and sealing of that building is one that needs to be done. We have 200,000 shown, we've been requesting under that. That's under existing, which I'm not sure if they're saying is out of the ACC HEAL grant.
Well, the
Bond?
bond.
The bond that was for the HEAL grant that we were gonna repay immediately, that we've now said we'll work on the roofs, the showers, and whatever we can done on the exterior of the building is where that one is right now. Next page, we had the re-roofing, which is also, we have estimated at 375,000 right now. That would come out of that, whatever we have left in that $1 million bond, that was for the HEAL grant. Buildings for the airport, we actually are in the process of applying for and receiving a grant from DASNY, which would get added in. We'd probably have to do a modification for the terminal building masonry and flashing. And siding work, it's $175,000 without a local share, that's from DASNY.
Yeah, I think it's, you're like a lot over this.
That's still in the Department of Public Works at the top. Should be, but that was put under Department of Public Works. That one was up here, it's not under the airport.
So where'd you move it? What page did you move?
It should be the next, it should be only a couple pages down from where we just started.
The healthcare center?
753.
Jump security services.
So I don't have the page numbers, I just have a printout, I apologize. I didn't take it right out of there.
Drapes, options.
No, we're on the airport terminal building masonry flashing.
And this is all gonna be done in-house?
762. Right?
All these
No,
projects?
this is contract.
Page 762.
Thank you.
That's a contract project. That DASNY has said they're gonna give us a grant for. We have not received it yet. It's supposedly
Oh boy, checks in the mail?
in the pipeline too. We
wow.
haven't received the grant offer yet for signature on that
Wow.
one. That's the one, they started with 75,000, then they added 100 to it.
Okay.
But it came out after the capital plan was submitted, so it's one we're working on to make sure we get it at this point. The next one down,
At this point in time, the building that had the masonry and
the
that
terminal
stuff
building.
is potentially grant funded.
Yes, it's very, very likely grant
So
funded. It's
that's-
supposed to be in the process now of going through the House or the Senate and then coming to us. Aileen Gunther's office has been involved in that one also.
You
So
didn't
then we
propose
don't need to worry about.
It came out after the capital plan went in.
So we don't, at this point in time, we don't need to worry about that money, or bonding that money, because it potentially is grant funded. Am I thinking correctly in this?
The only thing about it is they're all reimbursable grants. So we probably
What's
have
it
to
do?
do a modification to this and put money in there, upfront money, you get it back, but you have to pay the upfront cost. It's the same as we did with the HEAL grant when we bonded the $1 million to do the upfront cost of the HEAL grant. Although that's reimbursable monies, we have to upfront the monies. 175,000 we may be able to come up with though out of the,
Because if you
2
go-
million and the 4 million, that 2 million, or the 4 million
If you
Bond,
go
bond, the
backwards-
resolution.
Right.
The resolutions you had done to dedicate money to DPW out of the,
I passed
out
on
of
that
that
before.
passed recently.
Yep.
That could be, you could take money out of that, assign it to this project by resolution, having that as your funding source. It doesn't have to be by long-term debt, no.
Okay, and if I go back to page 754, there's a whole thing in there talking about Cornell, which now we don't have to concern ourselves with.
Correct. Those we took
So
out.
that
Yeah, we
money-
took
They're
those
they're
out.
taken
Take 'em
out.
Yeah.
They've
They were
already been
originally
removed.
requests, but we took out
Right.
the figures, so they're
Yep.
just, they're still in there because it's showing what happened in
because
prior
there's-
years. But there's no,
Well,
we're not
there's-
asking for any funding for that.
No.
And
So-
as we go through, there was
Go through your list
also
and then, yeah.
proposed funding in the future for the Apollo Plaza and the propane tanks down there and all that, which may now be academic also. They were for, not for 14, but I think they were for 15. So we may not be doing that type of stuff either, because we try to own all our propane tanks. That one is owned by the distributor. And if your propane tank is owned by the distributor, you have to buy from the distributor at whatever cost they do it at. When we own our own tanks, we can bid out and have whoever deliver to us, so we get a better price that way in the long run. We have to pay the initial upfront cost of buying a tank and installing it, but then we can supply whoever we'd like.
So the 4 and the 2, where does that, the 4 million and the 2 million, that was in excess of the reserve, where does that actually show up? It's not in the capital budget, right?
No.
Because
No.
if you take that, I mean, not, you know, I'm not a big fan of borrowing money in order to pay back a reimbursement
Mhm.
bond. So can that money be somehow taken out, if that's the money where it's gonna be used, and then when the grant is reimbursed, it's put back in that fund, or are there restrictions on that fund?
I would defer
Really
here, but I
something-
would
I
think
mean,
so.
we talked with the treasurer's office, it's really more of a cash flow issue than a
Okay.
bond. I mean, we borrowed the HEAL grant because it's such a big number.
Yeah.
I mean, usually, depending on the time of year, we can accommodate 100, 200,000 for a short period of time. It's more of a cash flow issue than.
But I'm not sure, did you say that we borrowed something, we didn't use it all? Is that what you just said?
No, when the HEAL grant, when we
I
did
know
that, when we
the HEAL
bonded
grant.
that
Yeah, I know
million,
how we
that's
did
that million in there that we said.
But now we
would-
gotta come up with that $1 million, because you're gonna spend that this year, right, on the roof?
Yeah, that's the roof and the showers were supposed to come
What
out
I'm
of that
trying to
million.
work out is, you know, obviously the sums aren't gonna be the same as with the HEAL grant, but anytime that you can take money that you have in hand somewhere, whether, you know, depending on the cash flow issue, I know that's January, February, March, it's a serious issue, but if we can avoid having to pay interest on a reimbursable grant, because the money, that's what happened with the HEAL grant, which is why I had a really hard time swallowing that one. Obviously, the amounts are less, right? We're not talking about $1 million that we're borrowing.
On this other one, you said 175,000.
Yeah,
so-
this is not a.
Yeah, historically, we
A
can,
wash.
we can deal with that historically.
Right.
Right.
It's, but like I said, we'll talk with Ira's office, but I think that's something you're not gonna be faced with having to borrow for that.
Right.
Right.
That's something that would be doable.
Yeah.
Okay, Ed, go through, why don't you
Okay.
go through your list and then we'll, give us a number and we'll.
We did a Berryville Maplewood consolidation where we actually ended up moving the money from 14 to 15. We're just trying to, we moved all the mechanics out of Berryville into Maplewood. We're still trying to make it more efficient in Maplewood. It's still a little overcrowded in there, and we'd like to change a few things around yet, but we're going to go through another year, and we'll move that one out, I understand. Berryville, our underground storage tank, $40,000. It's one it's a single wall tank. We've been in compliance with DEC because we have to do a tightness test on it on a yearly basis to make sure it's not leaking. The only problem is if we ever find that it is leaking, which it's getting to be an old single wall steel tank,
We don't tell them.
then not only do you have to replace it, but you have to do a
You would take it out.
remediation
Yeah, I
to
know.
the leak, which you may not find right away.
Getting it out of the ground?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we've been trying to
That's
get money
plan.
in there, and that's why it's in here as money to do so.
It's money well spent.
We've been doing that
Okay.
periodically,
We've replaced, we just did the
we
ones
haven't done
at the
them all
Human
once, but we've
Services.
picked off a couple every year to get the more ones that concern us the most and replace them. We're trying to do a few a year, one a year to try to get caught up.
And we're in pretty good shape, I think, after this one. I think this is the last underground storage that isn't double wall and interstitial monitoring and everything else in it, so we are getting there. Going forward, the HVAC system and this one, which is NIPA project, where we have money in there under other for that one, 600,000. That's the loan program to NIPA that we just agreed to start with the 25,000, or 2,500, sorry, dollars to do the study on that one. We're putting in 200,000 to do catch basins, sidewalks, curbs around this building and parking lot. We have a lot of work to do yet. We did some repairs out front, so eliminate some of the hazards and did some of the curbing work, but there's still quite a bit more that has to go. We have been looking to try and do paving and drainage also at the human service complexes in Liberty. Still trying to find money, grant funding to see if available for that. In other words, it's 600,000 on total county cost over there. The shared services, another one we've been trying to do for years, the exterior cleaning and sealing at $100,000. So we have that one into this one for long-term debt. Re-roofing over there, a smaller cricket roof over there, 25,000, not the entire building, but we're gonna get that done. Then there is still 500,000 sitting in to relocate the sheriff to Plaza Drive, however that plays out at this point. We've moved a few of our salt shed re-roofing projects for Livingston Manor and landfill out from 14 to 15 for a total of $30,000 there. Again, this is where I mentioned the Plaza Drive building before, propane tank. So that was in 15, that likely will go away at 45,000 to replace that tank.
And if we're no longer if the odds are we're not gonna own that building,
Yeah.
then, I noticed there's, in the 2016 budget, there's a proposal for a new building, or building, I guess, at the Maplewood facility for administrative, and that has like a cost of $940. I'm just wondering if it might make sense to have, kind of go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and develop a plan for a new building, or, I don't know how much space the sheriff's patrol would need in comparison to this proposed building, but, it might make more sense to see if we could build another facility,
We could look at that also, that was,
just as an option.
What's
That's
the
one.
944?
we've looked at that for a while, and that was moving basically all of DPW to Maplewood from this building, and freeing up that space down and moving out there. That was something Bob had come up with when he
I'm sorry,
first
I'm
came
a
in.
little
It's
lost.
been, always been years out, it's never made it close yet.
It's, on page 762, it's,
So it is this 940, the Maplewood Design Construction.
yeah, but it's not for the 2014 budget though, it's
Yeah.
2016, 2017.
We pushed it out. We don't do it next year. Well, I think Alan said
You know,
go
it just
down
makes
the road.
sense to me to, but if we temporarily move the sheriffs out there, if we're building a jail with the sheriff's department.
I agree with
at
Pete, if we
the
can at
jail,
some point get the, move on with the jail project that's 6
You
or
know,
7
it-
years, and decided that the sheriff's patrol belonged with the new jail, in my opinion. I mean, that's where they belong, but whatever. It's,
I mean, I don't
You
know
gotta
why
say
you
take 2
put
years to
one
build a
in
new
one
fac-
corner than.
No,
Sorry,
that was
anyone.
for us to go to Maplewood. From
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of,
that's-
all of
yes.
engineering and administration,
good
that had
idea.
nothing to do with the jails, that building.
but Alan's saying take the money,
Yeah, I know what
find a
Alan.
building, basically.
And say no pay.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Just to
no, I
be
wasn't
clear.
saying, I wasn't saying to take your money.
Alan wanted to add to it.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Put the engineers and the jail together.
Can you fit a few extra people in that?
We could.
Okay, so can we just focus on the two, only because we only have 20 more minutes. We need to focus on the, because we have to vote on this, folks, in 2 weeks. Let's just focus on the
Next week.
2014.
Yeah.
Oh, next week, bonding, and let them go through this, so there's, you have all your questions, answers, that, because you have to vote on it, like I said, next week. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay.
Then we'll talk about 15, 16 later.
Then we have two little short ones here that are shown as highway and bridge program. It's a lot of money in those two little,
Is the 600,000 for the HVAC and this building still slated for 2014?
yes. I don't think that would all be expended in 1 year, though, the way that program is set up, because they have to do the design and construction before you do the payback, and then it's an installment payments
It's almost,
over
it's almost like a
time.
lease payment versus issuing
Yeah.
a bond.
So I don't think you'd hit 600,000 next year. It's-
Wait a minute,
it's-
can you repeat what you just said, Josh?
It almost turns into like, they'll credit your energy, in essence, you're using the energy savings and then in turn making almost like in effect a lease payment.
Rather than taking.
You're not gonna borrow 600,000, you're
So-
gonna, it'll be spread out over a period of time as a lease, in the form of a lease payment versus bonding.
So at the end of all of this, you're gonna tell us what the bond is gonna, what the total bonding amount is gonna be based on?
I could sneak to the back of the book and tell you, but
Yeah,
wants to go
No, I wanna hear it all, but I just, because I'm assuming that
the
some things
total,
have changed.
the total DPW bonded capital work, as far as I could make out from everything in here, is $5,810,750 as the capital budget stands at this time.
Mhm.
That's what,
Without any modification, budget mods.
right,
which-
straight up right now,
Right.
what we're looking at is a $5.8 million bond,
Okay,
essentially.
so that 6 million that was over the reserve, that was put into a tranche of 4 and a tranche of 2,
Mhm.
is not counted as part of this 5.8?
No.
Okay, so I need to kind of rethink what has been going on in my head this whole time, so that I'm clear that that additional 4 and 2 are also capital projects.
The 4 and 2
No.
were set up as a reserve in case things came up that were unanticipated. You can always use that to pay for a project, but that, I don't think that was the general intent of what we were doing. We were saying, okay, we have extra money above the fund balance policy, rather than, for lack of a better word, just spend it away. We were gonna
It's a
put it
rainy day
aside
fund.
for unanticipated expenditures that may
Going
come up.
into
Going
his budget.
Not going into his budget, it's a reserve of your fund balance in case there's an unintended expense or
So
something that has
why
to be
was
done.
I coming away from the table thinking that 4 was going into roads and bridges and 2 was
It's a
going into
reserve for
capital?
future projects.
But I think the question, Cora,
You can
is.
certainly use it all in the first year we put it away, I don't know
I'm
if
not
that was the
saying
intent.
anything.
No, I'm
I've
saying
kept my
that
mouth
you
shut.
we can use it, I don't know if that was what was intended.
I just wanna know, you know, where all the money's being allocated and how much is from this and how much is from that and how much is from that and, you know.
Yeah, what we do is put up, here's how much money we need for these projects.
Mhm.
Then Josh's office
Now we're doing it
determines
next week.
whether that comes out of operating or capital, you know. We put in the request for money, we don't put in a request for bond money or for.
You're not
other than-
saying which way, which, sources coming in.
Yeah, we will let you know that ours have a county cost, a federal share, if it's a federal project, a state share if it's a state project, or another source, like we're working with the Village of Monticello on the County Road 173 project, where some of the monies will be coming from the village, so there could be another source coming in, or, you know. There's usually a municipality involved, it's not too much private funding that we get in. But those would be the costs on our capital projects when we send upstairs what we have.
Nancy?
And so 5.6, if we're using that figure, and then obviously you said there's a couple things that would come off the Apollo and. so we'll
No,
just-
but-
we'll
No,
use
this is
all-
the new-
That's with it?
Yeah,
Does
that's-
that include that every year that 3 million paving, that's included in the
That is not in
5.6?
this year's. Actually, in this year, we only,
So now
well,
we're
2 million, but
talking-
that's for everything, including local share of highway projects, so that's kind of the one I'm looking at right now.
So what's the rest of it?
So you're talking your usual paving borrowing on top of
Another
this
3
figure.
million.
That's not included in our capital
That's
at
what she's
this point.
saying.
There is a 2 million here, but it also, that's where I was just
The
getting
bridges
to.
is the two,
See, we had,
here's highway, two,
yeah,
bridges is the 260.
right, but the 2 also has to have the local share of County Road 173 and the college project. And if we're going with the in-house paving and surface treating program, that would come out of there also, because we have the 400,000 associated with that as well. So, depending on how we cut it up, we have 2 million of bond for highway work, and that's the one I was just getting to, so it kind of rolls into your question, where traditionally we used to bond 3 million. That would get us all of our paving that would have been needed in a year in a healthy system. Currently, where I started out with, that's now 7 or 8 million, because of the price of asphalt has more than doubled in those few years when we started with the 3 million as an annual bond. So even if we kept at 3 million, we'd be cut in half every single year of where we are. This year will definitely be less than half of what we should be doing, if the roads were healthy. Like I said, in reality, we're at a $64 million deficit in the road work right now.
So in terms of bond policy versus this rainy day fund, in quotes, for these kinds of capital expenditures, until we hit that bond limit where we're like at the risk of having our bond rating drop or something, we have a cushion as to how much we can bond before we get to that ceiling?
It's not just fund balance that credit ratings look at.
Mm-hmm.
They look at a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, what point are they gonna downgrade us at? If, if we borrow, they know about our jail.
Mm-hmm.
They know about certain things that are going on in the county that,
Mhm.
without talking casinos.
Mhm.
And they haven't been dropping us. because they know that that's coming up. If we come and tell them that, well, we need 5.6 plus 8 more roads
Plus
for
3.5.
capital, plus whatever for the other,
Meanwhile, we're keeping our rainy day fund for that rainy day.
well, when you kill your fund balances, that's a good chance of being dropped for using up all your fund balance too, so.
But there's a big road before you get to having used up all your fund balance. I mean, the last time that happened, the
Last time we did, it was really scary. We had a little over 2 million in fund balance. And everybody, you have to remember, fund balance is only on paper. It doesn't mean we have that sitting in the bank.
well, we also had the state controller, I mean, that triggered them to pay a visit. So,
Right.
I just need to, get a sense of where the mix is healthy and when you start to raise a certain flag.
Well, let me ask Ed this question. If we bonded the 5.8, is it possible not to, I don't know if I wanna say this, pave any roads this summer? I mean, then we're gonna be behind again. And then if you have this issue where you can't pave them, you gotta fix them, it's gonna
Yeah,
be 3 times the amount of money, so,
I don't
we're
think anybody's
juggling
saying
with
not
what-
to pay.
well,
We're juggling with what we can do with the amount of money we have, and we're looking at, and we've done it before where in lieu of paving, we fall back and say, well, anything that we paved within the last 5 years, we're going to just go back and surface treat and try and give it a longer life. We have had to do that. It's not the way I would like to plan a paving program. I would like to plan a paving program that you had $8 million every year, and I can go out and say, I'm gonna pave, I'm gonna surface street, I'm gonna crack seal, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and keep it maintained and do it every year, and I'd have a system that you could work with. Our guys now are looking at it, our highway unit, we're going back and forth, we're talking, and we're saying, maybe, rather than trying to pave 4 miles, try to surface treat 50 and get that at least a couple more years worth of life before going down the road. And that,
Going down the road, if we think in that direction, resurface or to extend the life of a road, if the magic casino occurs and we get all this other funds with that, that's the magic, then would it be sensible to be looking at paving based upon that occurrence versus let's just resurface at the time knowing that that is coming?
the problem is.
It's like we keep on fixing the old car until we
putting
find
the Band-Aid, it's a Band-Aid effect, you're
But,
right.
but we have a $64 million hole already. That's not touching that. The surfacing, the surface treating is trying to stop more roads from getting to that 64 million.
that's still-
But that's gonna keep increasing because some of the $220,000 repairs are going to $660,000 repairs.
In
Once
one
they're
fall.
broken open and the water's getting into them, they're done. They go, and you can't pave over them anymore. That's where the thing is, and we still try to hit some of those, because not just spending 220, it saves us 440,000 if we can get to those. And that's the way we look at it, like how many miles and what seems most likely. If I can pave 6 or 8 miles, if they're close and you can still hit them, they might be worth doing rather than surface treating. That's decisions we'll still make going forward by the end of the budget period, how much money we have to work with next year. It's a difficult decision because you don't, when you fluctuate year to year on how much money you have to work with, and it's a third of, at best, of what you need, you're going to fall behind. It's just how far behind it. And some roads go worse than others, depending on how the winter went and things like that. So we'll look at this again in the spring.
So
as
we're
we go
looking
along.
at bonding 8 million.
10
Five
million,
right now.
this is 10,
5.8.
contemplates 10.2 million in long-term borrow.
Well, that's
Right.
with only,
All in for everybody.
but it's only half of the radio project. Because at the time I submitted this, Alex had submitted on the old plan and we didn't have this new
Well, you know it was
8 million.
eight.
So you'd have
I
to
thought
in
it was
essence
4.
add another
Well, it was always 8 total.
But I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just got
Divided.
compressed, yeah, I mean, she'd add another, what, 3.5 to
Yeah.
this roughly.
3 and change.
So,
Right, but that's just moving them from 15 back to 14. It's not
Well,
the-
13 to 14.
Well, this
And with
also is coming in at a 3%, which is
Well,
so many
This
percent above
number-
the cap, so
this-
somehow
this
this
10 point,
needs to change.
well, the 10.2 would have, in essence, roughly eaten up the 700,000 that was coming off from 14 to 15. So you would, in essence, had relatively level debt service payments from 14 to 15. So you wouldn't necessarily had to have appropriated or found new money in the 15 budget. Obviously, an additional 3.5 crowds that out that Alex needs for the radio project. But that was the thought process, was to try to keep the debt service payments level and to see how much money we could potentially borrow with, and at the same time keep debt service payments level. That was the thought process.
To that,
So,
to that 13.2, if we had the radio, you
What about
are
CHIPS money?
requesting some number to get into that pile.
As, yeah, right now, well, the way we look at it right now, in the capital plan, we have about 2.5 million that's going to vehicle, DPW solid waste, transportation, and equipment for DPW and solid waste. Out of that 5.8, there's 2.53 that are going to that. Buildings, airport, parks, solid waste, all the DPW buildings that we have, that's another 1 million. And then in highway and bridge, we have 2,264,000.
Plus the state and federal, so it's 9.5.
I'm just saying what would be the local share
Local
on the
share,
long
you'd
term,
be 9.5.
well, the long term debt, the bonded, that's where that would go. There's additional monies in there, yeah, federal and state reimbursement, CHIPS, and then our funded
Marticelli.
projects,
Yeah.
yeah, the Marticelli, and then the federal aid from the highways is also in these.
But you're saying you need, the additional money would go toward eating at the hole.
Yeah, there's a big hole. It is a big hole, I mean, in all honesty, at this point.
So our option is we either have to bond more or put it in the operating budget and cut something else, because the tax number's limited. So maybe we don't have both choices pretty.
Yeah.
you know, I mean, let's face it, you know, your constituents see two things in the county, the public safety and this, and it's your roads and bridges. We didn't even strike all the roads last year. I mean, that to me is,
Well, if
it's
you
a
look
public.
at one of those pictures, you can see why we're not getting
If
all the
seniors out here,
roads
people
striped,
driving,
too.
me,
That's
I'm driving,
part
but
of it.
Some of
you can't keep.
some of them you can't, because it's a waste of money to stripe a crack in a road.
But the
But you
amount
can't-
of roads we did fix this past year was how much?
We paid 14 miles of road.
Okay, and that was, and how much did that come out to cost?
I think it was 3.2 million.
And that was out of the 3.5 bond.
We did 3.2 bond, or 3 point, yeah,
3.3.
I think we came in just a little under
Yeah,
the
it was
bond
like
amount
3.4
at that
something.
point,
Okay.
at the
I
end of the
mean,
year.
what's your priority list? Do you not do the roads, but then if you don't, you have this issue. You have to fix the bridges, cause then you get red flags and you don't wanna close down a bridge, trust me, did that one year. So
Well-
it becomes what,
Well, we started with 14 red flagged bridges, right?
No, flag bridges, we're a lot more, we're higher than that, yeah. But understand, red flags, they have variants. Sometimes that can be a sign down, that's a red flag, because you don't have it up. I
There's
mean,
different degrees
the
of red
structural
flags.
flags, yeah, and then there's prompt interim action flags, where we have 24 hours to either fix the problem or
Get off the pot.
it may be downpost the bridge. Well, that bridge on there was one that was similar to that, where our fix was make it one lane and downpost it, and then put 2x12s on, and bolted it up to support it for the load that we could put it at. We had it temporarily closed in order to do that, and then we can open it as temporary. We have bought material for that, and we'll be fixing it this coming season.
And where is that bridge?
Hazel.
So basically, it's what is 5.8 buying this? That's what
you
we're
just-
looking at.
yeah, this is the
list.
2014 list that Ed's talking about to bond for 2014, all the stuff he went over.
And you're
Okay.
looking for an additional.
And then if we did paved roads, it'd be another 3 million, correct? Huh? 6.
A paltry 64 million.
Yeah, I mean, 64 gets the roads back, it doesn't do the bridges, and doesn't do the
Dan,
buildings,
do
and
not
it
put that
doesn't
in
do
the paper,
equipment.
please. Do not put we need 60, please. Nobody's gonna wanna come here.
Well, I
At
think
some,
we're in better shape than we were last year in terms of what we can do. And I think that that's, you know, what we have to build on, is what more can we do this year?
okay,
than
so
we
are you saying that you
last year?
agree that you raise your hand to bond $5.8 million next week, so we have to pass this?
But that's not any different than what we started with.
Yeah, but if 5.8, then it's another figure though, it's not just 5.8, you're talking 2 or 3 plus for roads.
Well, that's why I wanna know what does this buy us? What does 5.8 buy us? What does 3.5 buy us? And at the end of it, you know, how much we're actually gonna be putting all out, as opposed to an additional, if you hadn't said that additional 3.5, how would I have figured that out?
No,
And
that
we
won't.
need to- this
No,
year-
that's, we've never done that separately and distinct from that. That's always been in our plan at this point in time. It's not in there this year. We don't have that in there because we would have another 4 million, or what would we figure, $3,758,250 more we could have in there right now if we were gonna go. We had looked at a $4 million paving program this
So we'd be
year.
close to 20 million.
Well, you would have to add another almost 4
With
million
the
to
eight
that.
from
The extra radio.
It's not in there now, no.
And I think you
But
guys
now-
have to decide, so there's one borrowing instead of 2, because it costs money every time we borrow. And last year, we ended up doing 2 borrowing.
Your borrowing is in March,
We'd like to borrow in March, and we need to because of the TAN.
That's why we,
so that's the idea. Probably by January, I would like to know
A
what
good
we're.
idea.
Well, to have a
Well,
bond
we
resolution
have to
passed, so
bond,
he'd have
right.
the month of February to
Right.
go and get
Because
everything he needs to get done.
You have to the advertising and everything.
but we wanted to, right, but we need to settle how much we want to bond, so that when we pass the bond in January, Ari knows how much we wanna borrow, but you see he needs the 5.8 plus the,
Well, it seems to me if we have $6 million more than we had last year, we should be able to work out a plan where we're actually paving more than we were last year.
But as he said, the it's like the gas went up in price, you know, I
So you're
mean, it's not the
doing
same
half.
price as it was
we only
last
do the
year.
third of what you could've done 10 years ago, basically is what you said, right?
Yeah.
The price of asphalt, right?
I'm not talking about 10 years ago, I'm talking about last year.
Yeah, no, and last year we did 14 miles at 3.2, so I think we bonded
So-
3.5.
But you didn't
but
do
we only
buildings
used-
and you didn't do the.
We didn't do the, we didn't, well,
No,
the
we were
vehicles
behind on a lot of
were
other
pushed
things.
down.
Well,
Yeah.
but, you know, all of a sudden, there's a $1 million bond that we did for the HEAL grant, which we all already knew. I mean, so, I'm just trying to point out the fact that we're in better shape and we can get more done
Mhm.
with the money we have.
So you, Alan?
I mean, I'm just listening to the conversation, it seems, you know, without a substantial increase in county revenues, that, you know, under our current fiscal situation, we simply don't have enough money to maintain all our capital facilities, which include the roads.
Correct.
I have 2
Dispute that.
suggestions, but I'm not sure you wanna hear them.
No. I mean,
We,
I think, you know, if we magically found 64 million tomorrow to
Well, you're not gonna-
bring all the roads up, we'd still have difficulty just maintaining them under
Yeah.
our current revenues.
And that is just the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
not
you-
the bridges.
but
That's-
we- but we
Bridges,
still
not the
have to
buildings,
maintain what
the
we.
vehicles.
I don't know what the answer is, but it's a problem.
Well, I think if we're in better shape than we were last year, then we should, you know, do what we can so that we're not, you know, going backwards.
I agree with you, Cora.
So you gotta update this and we should be in a position that's gonna be about $20 million.
Not in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2014.
Well, if you did everything you're talking, if you, 8 million for the radio and then.
Yeah, this is right now, say 6, and we had pulled out almost 4 already that we had proposed initially, but we've backed off on, and that was a paving program
So you're talking about
of
15
another
million.
4.
Whose phones are those?
20 million we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right on the thing.
Well, I
That's
mean, if you-
everything, though, that's all the
if you
vehicles,
kinda,
all
I
the
mean,
equipment, the DPW, the radio.
Translate it into the tax levy, I mean, if this 10 million roughly is gonna equate to roughly 700,000 debt service payments. So if you double it, in essence, we'll be looking at an increase of about 700 rough ballpark numbers
That'd be for two
that
thousand
you'd have
fifteen.
to find either in a tax increase or cuts or so. or
In
additional
2015,
revenue.
by
In
now,
15.
in 2015.
Yeah. 'Cause everything you're doing in here is not gonna impact 14, it's gonna impact 15. So I mean, I can get more accurate numbers, but just back of the envelope, that's gonna be about the order of magnitude you're looking at.
What we did years ago, I mean, a long time ago, when we had this issue, because you just can't keep banding, we told our taxpayers that we were gonna raise property taxes, I think it was 4%, don't quote me, because I'd have to look it up. And the 4% was gonna be designated to our roads and our bridges and all our infrastructure. That was, I'm saying, I wouldn't say it this year, because this year it's done, but maybe for next year, but Josh is right, I think we have to do this. I mean, at least some of it. How can you can't keep, Alan, you disagree? I mean,
I agree.
How, you
Because the
can't
more you
keep,
defer to maintenance, the
it's
greater
gonna
the
get
cost is going to be.
so critical that we're gonna have some issues that we're not gonna be able to deal with. So, also, when we have, but that's for another day discussion, we do have $6 million in the landfill fund, we can undesignate and take 2 from there, but that's not gonna happen in this budget, because it doesn't look like we're ever gonna need $6 million for the landfill closure. We'll need a couple, but we may need 6. So that's another option for next year, we could just talk about that another time, but there is some money out there.
I think if you're talking about it, we need to have that talk, because if we're closing the landfill and we don't have the Apollo and the phase this and the phase that, we need to talk about it now, not put it off for the rainy days and not have that discussion. That doesn't make sense.
Well, but Kitty, no, the issue is that we already told our constituents we're gonna live within our tax cap, so we can't.
Right.
So,
Right.
but what we're saying but Kitty, if we pass this capital budget, we don't have to address the interest to 2015. So I'm saying during the year
So we're
14.
staying in the capital, but we're gonna stay within the tax cap, but we're gonna bond it because it's gonna happen 2 years down the road? That's what we're doing?
The payments don't come to 2015, yeah.
So, we're staying in the cap because we're shooting the money down the road.
Well, yeah.
Is that?
You're not, the payments.
I mean, you have other payments this year that you committed to last year. I mean, you're making band payments in 14 that, like the $3.5 million you borrowed this year, there's about a $700,000 budgeted item just to pay that off next year. So, I mean, it's like a rolling thing. What you decide in any given year is going to have an impact on the next year from a bonding perspective.
And I'm saying would have a year to come up with the additional money we would need in the 2015 budget. That's basically what I'm saying.
Well, like I said, in the order of
Maybe-
magnitude, it's going to be about 700,000.
Right.
So, and that would probably be a percent and 1.3% of something in there around
Some
there.
of the
the
debt's
tax.
being retired, don't forget that.
Well,
Right.
that's the 7's coming
That's
off,
the
but,
reason,
Seven's coming off.
but if you did double that, you're going to have an additional 7 you probably have to
Right.
find. So that just in high level numbers is probably
Are
what
we
you're
going to the
looking-
big room?
Because it's hard to hear
Oh.
10 or 20. I mean, you need that in the context of what that means for the budget.
And that's still without touching the.
That would be
Reserve.
good, yeah.
Well, exactly.
And
Yeah.
the fund balance is.
If it was up in there, take the whole
What's the minimum?
fund
What,
balance.
that we have to keep there now?
It's the 5% is about 7 million, I think. You have about 13 and change,
Of the resolution, it is 13.
ignoring the landfill.
It is 13.
What's that?
Touch my papers.
I wish I could, but. Well, the
All right,
landfill doesn't.
so Ed has to put his plan together by next week. Think about, anybody else have any more questions? Let me say that.
Keep going through your list, because we cut you off at the calendar.
Yeah, I'm
It's-
sorry, Ed, I'm sorry.
No, there's a full, I mean, it goes on into our equipment. I mean, the numbers are here. I can go through each individual one, but that's, at this point.
I mean, Ira, did you want to add anything?
You
It's-
can't keep on letting it go, it's only gonna cost us more money.
And I mean, I was looking, when I was going through it and looking at some of our definitions, just so you know, underneath our solid waste, I was reading the buildings infrastructure, and one was the landfill perimeter security fence. Not that that's a critical item in some respects, but as I read the description, I read, it's phase 1, keep out ATVs that have been running into there, and include the area for the proposed MRF transfer station, which was built now several years ago, that was even
Right.
at just a proposed station, it wasn't even designed at that point. So a lot of these things that have been in here have been going off year to year, and that was just one I happened to notice. So some of these things that are on here have been on here, some of the building cleanings, the exterior cleanings have been there 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and they just, we push them off every year, so
Okay, in summer, you're gonna.
sooner or later, we get to the point. That's why I know there was a question why we have 12 pickups here as a, it's because we haven't bought trucks. And these aren't just pickups, these are utility trucks that we use. When we go to a bridge project, we're probably carrying in pickups a tons
Yeah.
of generators, pumps, hoses,
Yeah.
everything that we have to get out there goes out in our utility trucks. Our mechanics go out in utility trucks. We have trucks
Adopt the budget.
that have holes in the side of the utility things that are no longer, you can't put equipment in them. So we're running them more as transport vehicles. We have always retired things either to the airport or to the landfill where they might not have to be road vehicles anymore, and we're even losing those now, or, you know. That's why there's 12 here.
Kind of like the sewer plant full, we get whatever's left over.
Yes, and that's how it
Stays in the
goes.
plant.
Okay.
And we do those, we run them till, it's not like we just run them and say, oh, we're gonna get rid of these, ours. By the time we're done with them, they're done. They're done. They've been used, and we will keep putting them on the road
Yeah,
till
I'm
they're,
done. I'm wrapping
well,
up.
when they're not safe, we will take them off.
We're having
Our
here-
guys do inspection and they won't.
Okay, not to cut you short, because we have 5:30 public hearing, and I
Mhm.
don't want people to sit and have to wait too much longer, but, so we have the, if you have any questions for Ed, you have a, you know, call him, email him, you have a week to, we'll finalize this, and I need public comment, anybody? Ken?
Yeah, two things. When we talk about striping, I went to Liberty the other day, when it was raining on Friday, nice weather,
Yeah?
and having these cars come at you, and hardly able to see the road because the striping was in poor shape. So I mentioned this before, you're not making it safe for any drivers, and the older we get, the worse it gets. So, you know, I could say you're gonna do notice now, somebody wants to sue you, fine, it'll cost you more to sue. But that to me is just a lax
I agree.
situation
Public safety
as
issue.
far as, you know, trying to save money. As we had a public hearing and the vote on the 2% cap, and it failed because it wasn't a 6. It's like the minority has controlled the majority. And I said then it's gonna hurt you. And I really feel you're painting yourself into a smaller and smaller corner, and after listening to what's going on now, I don't even know how you're gonna get out of that corner. Enough said.
Any other public comment? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Jonathan Allen.
When do you normally just do the